Yeah, so I believe we can start it off. Thank you everyone again for joining this session on the topic of supply chain management. And I want to thank you, Mirko, for your presentation today and for your insight in that field and in that topic. And again, after the presentation, we will have the chance for discussion around questions or any other comments or concerns from the group. You will be able to put your questions into the chat. You can do so already during the presentation. You can ask your question later on in person if you would like, or you can put it in the chat. Again, please be reminded this session and this will be recorded. So if you maybe don't want to appear as someone who asking a questions, you can put it in the chat anyway, and I can read it out. Yes, but now I will hand it over to Mirko. Thank you very much again for your expert insight into the topic of supply chain management.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay. It's, I think, quite an extensive topic to actually talk about. So I think in the time that we have, it will hopefully provide a good overview, some insight into what is actually involved. So again, it's not going into every single detail. Again, these details will probably depend very much on the company that you're working for. But I do hope that it does provide the sufficient insight into the topic to render it an important aspect that needs to be considered within the management system, right? So I hope everybody can see I think the presentation is visible, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mirko, do you think it's possible
Yes.
to turn on your camera? Is that okay for you?
I can do that.
So we can.
1 second. There it is. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So welcome everybody to today's talk on the supply chain management, and essentially I have structured it in the following topics. There are certain requirements that we should probably consider. To that, we will consider, for example, what are the customer expectations, right? Besides the customer expectations, there are also expectations we have to consider from the supplier side. I mean, they are party to some kind of an agreement with the customer, and therefore they also have certain expectations, which I believe should be considered in any supplier-customer relationship, right? And then based on those issues, we will be talking about certain related risks that we have to manage within the management system, which will focus in this case, obviously, on risks related to the supplier management. All right. So what are we looking at? Obviously, what I've just said, the customer expectations, supplier expectations, and the related risks. And what do we actually look for? Number one, the customer will obviously have expectations in the first regarding the quality of a product. And he expects this quality to be consistent, thereby providing reliability, high quality product with a consistent performance and a level of compliance, right? Compliance, also looking at the legal and regulatory requirements to be compliant with market requirements as far as any authority might dictate, all right? Right. The customer will also expect, obviously, timely and flexible delivery. Yeah, we would obviously want to prevent any disruptions within our own production as a customer. Therefore, we expect the supplier to be able to deliver when we have the need for certain products. In today's world, obviously just-in-time delivery, very often things like that, just in sequence, whatever the case may be. It is our expectation as a customer to receive our products on time and hopefully, obviously, knowing what the markets are like. There must be a certain flexibility. Unfortunately, things happen, and not everything works exactly in the same way, in the same frequency. We're always looking at some kind of flexibility that needs to be provided. We're looking at communication. Communication with the customer. We want or our expectations as a customer is that communication is transparent and that it is timely, that things are not pushed along. We expect information as we require it. This ensures, obviously, some kind of open communication, ensuring quick response. We want to build trust, enabling, obviously, some kind of a smooth collaboration between the customer and the supplier. I think that's definitely one of the issues that we find very often, is that the supplier feels he's being hammered into a corner. He simply has to conform with the customer expectations. At the end of the day, any contractual agreement between the customer and the supplier is really a business relationship, which should be a win-win situation. All right, the supplier would want to make money, and obviously the customer would also like to make money by being able to sell his high-quality products to the market. So it should be a win-win situation where there is open communication, and where one can respond very quickly to any issues, right? We're looking at compliance with customer and legal or regulatory requirements. This is obviously extremely important. Number one, we're looking at customer requirements such as certifications. Do I expect my supplier to be certified to certain standards, whatever they might be? Could be obviously the ISO or IATF, which is the most common one in the automotive industry. It could also be other requirements to standards such as ISO 14000, 45001, etc., etc. So what do we expect as a customer as far as that is concerned? We're looking at, for example, the environmental, social, and governance requirements, or those principles. Those are obviously pretty well established in the automotive industry. So we're looking a little bit beyond simply receiving some kind of products. We're looking at the behavioral issues of the supplier, which again focus on how we deal with the environment, how we deal with people, how our governance requirements. Those are extremely important, play a huge role, and I think especially with smaller suppliers, these things probably require quite a bit of support by customers. We're also looking at a commitment to sustainability, right? Yeah, sustainability in terms of what will be coming soon as far as the ISO 53001 will be concerned, based on the 17 goals of the United Nations for sustainability. So those are definitely aspects which also need to be considered in supplier management as far as the expectations of the customer are concerned. There are also other things that might be relevant. Obviously, the constructive collaboration and cooperation, which I've just mentioned briefly. I would be looking at economic stability of a supplier. Something that is probably also extremely important is innovation and state of the art, right? What is the state of the supplier? Are we really looking at something that is innovative? Are we looking at some supplier that is applying state of the art, right? Those things might become very important once we're looking at compliance issues. Also important, for example, compatible strategic alignment of the supplier with my business as a customer, right? And obviously, things such as capability of delivery, those topics are probably extremely important. Obviously, there are others which we could consider. They might also depend very much on your specific business. So this is just some kind of a taste of what we should be considering as customers as far as our own expectations go. There are also obviously expectations by the supplier. So what does the supplier actually expect of us as a customer? He expects, for example, accurate forecasts, right? Helping suppliers to plan and manage his inventory, optimizing his resources, right? So that's something he would like to do, which obviously, if things are not optimized, yeah, it will probably come down back as an increase in price or something. And ultimately, I always like to say, the language that we all speak is the language of money. That's quite intuitive. So any inefficiencies, any needs for optimization, if they are not optimized, that would obviously come down in pricing again, right? We're looking at clear requirements, clear specifications, right? The supplier would want and expects very clear and precise technical requirements so that he knows what he needs to comply with in terms of meeting quality standards and other customer needs. He expects a stable relationship. So this whole thing comes down to trust and collaboration. He expects fair pricing, obviously, right? And we know that's a tough thing in the automotive industry, where very often the customer dictates the price for the product. So fair pricing, I think, is something that we obviously need to take into account as an expectation of the supplier. Honoring contractual agreements, obviously also a very important issue. I believe that there's, for example, an issue in China, as far as I've sort of gathered, with the extremely fast development of electric vehicles, which are changing all the time. Suppliers actually have a problem in keeping up prices and being able to supply things, their products, because by the time they supply it, the next generation of product is already being required. So yeah, these kind of things cause huge problems, and probably come down to honoring some kind of contractual agreements, fair pricing. Those kind of things are definitely important there. As far as decisions and support is concerned, yeah, the supplier would like to obviously have fast decisions. He wants to have active support. Should there be an escalation or improvement to drive long-term partnership success, this is where obviously he might expect active support. I think we might see these kind of things, for example, if there is a problem, right? It's very easy to receive a claim, and in some cases it's rather difficult to actually get parts, get anything to investigate promptly, because parts are not always available, right? So yeah, those kind of issues are need to be addressed so that we do not have any unnecessary escalation. Now, these expectations by customers and suppliers, they obviously bring with them certain risks. So what kind of risks are we actually looking at? Risks, obviously, the loss of trust between supplier and customer. There might be insufficient competitiveness. We as a supplier, as a customer, have the risk of insufficient competitiveness. We might be considering or dealing with suppliers that are lagging in technology. Yeah, that comes back to the state of the art issue. Maybe there is an incompatible strategic alignment between customer and supplier. Liabilities and damage claims, those are definitely risks that we are facing. Financial stability of the supplier is another risk that we need to deal with. I don't want my supplier to go bankrupt on me in the middle of some project. Transfer of any confidential knowledge, perhaps. Obviously, passing down information along the supply chain means that we are opening up to open the door to any confidential information that might be available. So those are definitely also risks. Maybe unstable geopolitical situations need to be considered. I think there are enough examples of that worldwide. Things such as insufficient supplier resources, right? Obviously, as a customer, we are most affected by that if the supplier does not have sufficient resources. What are we going to do? Because there is a contractual agreement at the end of the day that he will supply us with something, and if he does not have the resources, well, then I have a problem. Lack of collaboration. There are sufficient examples of collaboration issues. Probably, as far as I'm concerned, mostly due to a lack of understanding of what the requirements are and the expectations are. Could deal with some examples of that. Maybe I'll just get down to those kind of things. Maybe just mention an example very quickly. Things such as special processes in the automotive industry. They are very often, I would imagine, mostly perceived as suddenly the customer coming down with more requirements and nobody really understands what they are for, which ultimately leads to a lack of collaboration, and these things are done because they are perceived to be forced down. So the question is always, how do we collaborate? What is the use of something? Where's the benefit? These things need to be understood. Yeah, and perhaps things such as insufficient supplier resources. Oops, sorry, got that twice. Please excuse that. All right, so key risks that we're dealing with obviously are material defects, instability, where also faulty materials, unstable process risks, deal with satisfaction and safety issues, production capacity, compliance risks, we've mentioned those. So fluctuations within the production capacities, non-conformances. If we're dealing with claims, whether they are customer claims or internal claims, these might disrupt the delivery, our manufacturing as a customer. So these are issues if we're talking about the quality side of things. Maybe also traceability is definitely an issue. Traceability, how easy is it to, in the case of some kind of a claim, to locate exactly the extent of the problem? So I think that's definitely, as far as a quality risk is concerned, an issue, poor traceability. What kind of documentation do we need? Are there any gaps within the documentation which possibly allow any quality issues to persist? And then the dependency on suppliers. Yeah, basically, this deals with the poor management of sub-suppliers. So our supplier dealing with his suppliers. If there's poor management, this might result in any hidden quality risks and obviously complicates any issue that can be resolved there. Becomes quite a complicated issue. As far as liabilities are concerned, we also look at liabilities. Obviously, what is the financial impact of any claims that we're dealing with? Claims could be connected to any scrapping. Obviously, it could lead to sorting, resending something, replacing products, and so on and so forth. So those are the direct financial impacts. We obviously know them as the direct quality costs that we're usually faced with. Things that are a little bit more difficult to quantify are probably the risks to the reputation. So any recalls that we might have, delays, and so on and so forth, might have an impact on the reputation that we have. And then obviously we also deal with legal compliance issues. If we violate legal and regulatory requirements, there might be fines attached to that. We might be held liable to whatever extent of the law by violating things such as the REACH or the dangerous goods or any environmental, social, and governance rules, and so on and so forth. So there are probably a whole host of issues where liabilities are attached. Usually we see these things, if we spin the whole idea of quality claims a little bit further, in many, many cases, we will be dealing with liability issues to some or other extent as well. So I think that really looks at the requirements as far as customer and supplier is concerned. The question then is, for example, what how do we carry on in this whole issue in terms of the road to qualified suppliers? All right. So I think the thing we all understand is purchasing always likes to look at the price, and they are quick to find out some kind of supplier who offers us everything for next to nothing. And they're quite quickly satisfied with that, but that's not the way things work. So essentially, the question is, how do we pre-qualify suppliers? With a pre-qualification, then we're looking at perhaps nominating a supplier. And based on the nomination and certain results, ultimately, we would like to have an approved supplier, right? So what happens here in terms of this whole process of supplier qualification? First of all, we're looking at pre-supplier qualification, at some stage the nomination, and based on the nomination, we can then look at the supplier approval, which is essentially the path that we are following. So to start off supplier qualification, in the first instance, we need to be looking at, for example, what are the requirements for a specific project or for a specific part or product that we expect to sell, or at least expect to buy from our supplier, sorry. We might be looking at technical requirements. Technical requirements, these should be detailed and realistic specification so that we can look at and ensure any project success. We might be looking at quality issues where we specify clear requirements regarding the product performance and safety and conformity issues for a product. Logistics, obviously an issue. Logistics, looking at the timelines, the volumes of deliveries, resources that are required for logistics to keep any project on track, to be able to provide project. And then also financial requirements. So what kind of budget limits, funding sources, which might be required here, could be an issue. Right. As far as the pre-qualification is concerned, we usually start off with certain supplier information, right? Information which is provided by a supplier in terms of some kind of a questionnaire, an initial questionnaire that usually purchasing will provide to a potential supplier, where information is requested regarding the products that are being provided, experience within a certain industry, maybe the history of production in that field, field of expertise, perhaps. We would be asking about information regarding technologies that they have on site. This is again probably related to state of the art. Capabilities, capacities. We would, as customers, expect that kind of information so that we know what could we be dealing with this supplier. We would like to also know certain information about which plants do they have. Do they have various plants? At which locations do they have plants and manufacturing capacities? These plants and locations, they might be focusing on different products or product groups, different technologies, perhaps, right? Whatever information they have on their sourcing and their sub-suppliers, that might be an absolute relevant information for us to be able to plan with some kind of certainty whether we can be provided with the products that we want based on their ability to source materials that they need. We might be asking information regarding certifications for the company. Provides a certain level of security if we know that they are certified to, for example, the IATF 16949. Perhaps also the ISO 14001, 45001, 50001, whatever it might be. So those are the informations that we'd like. Information regarding the financial stability might be interesting. Information on sustainability. So again, we could extend this over a whole list of information that might be relevant to our company for us to make a decision on whether this might be a supplier to consider. Right. So what is the value of self-assessments? Obviously, these self-assessments provide insights into previous performance at the supplier, right? Now, obviously, when we're doing this, when we're getting this information and we're asking for the completion of such a questionnaire, of such a self-assessment, we must always be aware that they are not a supplier yet. There is no contractual agreement, so there is no obligation for anything to happen. So we would just like to be able to get some kind of a basic idea of whether the supplier is actually more or less in line with what we need, and whether he is able, based on his scope of products that he produces, his technology and so on, based on the performance, whether we could consider him on that basis, right? We would like some kind of transparent presentation of his capabilities, obviously not extracting any confidential information. We cannot expect any company to simply put any confidential information on the table without there being any contractual requirement. Obviously, such a self-assessment will provide the basis for an on-site assessment of that supplier, right? So that basically means we would be doing an audit on-site at the supplier based on the information that we have available, right? So that information we would obviously like to get some kind of an idea where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are. So essentially, that will form the basis of our on-site assessment, which would result from the very first step, doing the pre-qualification. Once we've got all that information, we will then look at the on-site supplier assessment. Again, it is a sensitive topic here because we are essentially asking the supplier whether we can see his production, where we will probably be looking at certain confidential issues. So we have to obviously ensure that confidentiality will be agreed when we do this assessment, because the supplier is still under no obligation to provide anything to us. So essentially, such an assessment is a sensitive issue. We would like to get a very good indication based on anything similar that we would like to purchase from the supplier, whether in terms of quality, quantity, and so on, he is actually able to satisfy our requirements, also based on that technology that he says he has. We would like to get an idea of how our potential supplier deals with his or assesses his sub-suppliers. How does he implement his sub-supplier management? How does he go about purchasing, right? Looking at the provision and the utilization of his resources to be able to satisfy my requirements if I were to provide him with a contract. Other issues, obviously, assessing his manufacturing capability, the production capacity. Those are issues that I would like to assess during my on-site audit, perhaps also confirming quality systems that he has in place, assessing quality assurance capabilities. So what kind of inspection and testing equipment does he have available? What kind of facilities? What is he familiar with? How does he actually carry out these things to ensure that I will hopefully at some stage, if there is a contract, receive what I expect from him. Also, delivery logistics issues, I would like to have a look at. We're looking at the level of skills available in his human resources, and also customer service capabilities, which need to be assessed. And you might want to add to those, all right? So I think it does become quite a comprehensive thing if we do such an audit. I think what we need to mention here is when we do such an assessment or an audit, it will focus very much on the value-adding chain and any related support processes that we might have, such as any inspection and testing. We might want to consider maintenance issues, his ability to maintain equipment, and so on and so forth. Those would be the interfaces to processes that are not value-adding but are necessary to keep the value-adding chain alive. So a little bit different to the typical system audit that we usually do internally. At that stage, if I'm going to do this audit at the supplier, I'm probably not really focusing on his strategic development or his strategic alignment. I essentially would like to know whether if I give him a contract, whether he is able to satisfy my needs by providing me with what I want. Right, considerations of criteria for supplier nomination. So now I've done my audit or my assessment of the supplier based on maybe something similar that he produces, and I would like to consider the results of my on-site assessment. I would also be looking at the risks regarding the product complexity that I would expect from him, and maybe also something like the strategic importance of the product that I am purchasing from him. There might be others as well that you might have in terms of criteria to ultimately nominate a supplier. Now, supplier nomination does not necessarily mean that he now definitely gets a contract or he is awarded the business. These issues are going to be reviewed by a team based on the criteria for supplier approval, upon which a decision is going to be made for awarding the business. Okay, so the fact that we have assessed him and now feel that he is fit to be nominated as a supplier does not necessarily mean that the supplier will definitely receive or we will be awarded the business. Okay, he is now a nominated supplier, hopefully. And then we go to the next issue of basically, sorry, if I just go back to this, the approval upon nomination is decided by the team, right? So again, it is not automatic that the nominated supplier is automatically awarded business, but the team decides whether that supplier may be awarded the business and therefore becomes an approved supplier. Okay. Right. Then we come to the last topic, the supplier performance issue. A brief look at quality agreements. I think that is probably a bone of contention, which very often is perceived by the supplier. Here's some document which is just simply presented to us. We need to sign it, and if we don't, we have problems. I guess very often, especially with big customers, this might just be the case. You don't sign their agreements, you probably won't get the business. That is, I guess, a very unfortunate thing. At least there must be some kind of an agreement between the customer and the supplier regarding the quality that is going to be provided by the supplier. Assuming that we have this agreement, we then also need to monitor and evaluate the supplier on an ongoing basis, and if necessary, we would have to develop suppliers. Right? So looking at the supplier performance, again, quality agreements, monitoring and evaluation, and supplier development. What are the key aspects that we're looking at? In terms of quality agreements, the basic requirements that we should consider in these agreements consider the management systems as a general topic. All right, as we know from the IATF, it is generally a requirement that suppliers are certified to IATF 16949. Minimum requirement is obviously the ISO 9001 certification. So again, where are we and what are the basic expectations that we have regarding the management systems that they have available? We would be looking at audits that need to be conducted either internally or by us as a customer, information that is going to be provided to us regarding audits and other performance issues and the documentation that is involved. We would be looking at how they should be managing their sub-suppliers. Important issue. Every supplier needs to be supplied with materials, raw materials, and what have you. So we have certain expectations regarding the management of sub-suppliers. We might be affected by that. We would stipulate what product requirements we expect. This might include things such as identification and traceability, amongst others. Besides the quality aspect, you might also consider things such as environmental protection, health and safety requirements, any social requirements. So really we're looking at the ESG, the environment, social and governance topics. They are very often considered as part of the basic requirements in a quality agreement. Very important also escalation methods that are stipulated. This, I think, is always an issue that maybe doesn't get enough attention. Contracts are always there for not for the good times, but for the bad times. So if something happens, we would like to know what kind of escalation method is available. Again, there might be other issues. These are generally basic issues. We would be stipulating clear quality targets, for example, quality targets that can be set by these agreements. Could consider obviously PPM targets as the typical example. You might want to stipulate the not only the PPM, but the effects of a problem. This is always something that one should consider. It might be a one-off issue that has a huge impact on my production or huge consequences as a result of that incident. As opposed to, for example, many small issues that are more of a nuisance than actually providing huge, expensive outcomes. Targets as far as audits are concerned, response times to claims and things like that are definitely an issue where quality targets might be set. Also, the documentation and the records that are required. So, for example, any agreements regarding the testing, any necessary documentation required for consistent traceable quality, depending on what kind of product we're purchasing. This might differ in extent of documentation that might be necessary. And obviously also in terms of claims management, an important issue. So what do we expect as a customer in terms of handling complaints by the supplier? How do we expect them to solve problems? How do they deal with warranty issues? And perhaps also things such as insurance requirements. If a problem cannot be solved, I still have probably some kind of financial issue to deal with if I'm not able to honor my contracts or my contractual agreements as a customer. Maybe there needs to be some insurance involved here. And if the fact that my supplier is unable to provide for whatever reason, it might be his own reason of his own making, it might be force majeure. That's when insurance comes into play, and perhaps we need to ensure that there is sufficient coverage. So those are essentially the parts or the issues that we deal with in terms of quality agreements. Always remembering that, again, we have expectations as customers, and we should also honor the expectations of the supplier, right? This is an agreement. So again, it needs to ultimately be a win-win situation and not be perceived as forcing suppliers or forcing something down the supplier's throat just because it's there. So I hope that makes some kind of sense. We're looking at supplier monitoring and evaluation. Again, yeah, I guess everyone is probably familiar with some kind of a evaluation scheme of suppliers that you have in the company. This is where we pretty much on an ongoing basis, depending on your own requirements. It might be monthly, it might be quarterly, or annually even, I don't know, depending on what kind of company you are. So essentially, we're going to measure the supplier performance using whichever KPIs. These KPIs might be looking at the quality of deliveries. Again, I'll just put PPM here. You might have some kind of incident-based evaluation in this regard. The on-time delivery, the quantity of product delivered for each delivery, audit results, claims management. Those might be issues that you would have included in your evaluation scheme of suppliers. Again, you adapt that to whatever your needs are. The objective of this whole issue is that you have some kind of a scorecard to show what capabilities the supplier has. Ultimately, we would like to be able to classify our suppliers. Usually we do that by means of A, B, or C classifications, for which there might be different criteria within each company. Again, there is no absolute standard of how this is done. Again, depending on what kind of system you have, please distinguish here between the supplier nomination when we do our on-site assessment of a supplier, especially if you're dealing with the German VDA 6.3, for example. The result is an A, B, or C rated supplier in terms of being able to accept this supplier, nominate him, or block him. In terms of supplier monitoring, we are talking about the ongoing evaluation of existing suppliers that have been approved ultimately. Okay. So you will have, based on your evaluation scheme, A, B, or C classification criteria. And what we would also like to do, besides the classification criteria, monitoring by means of KPIs, we would like to conduct supplier audits on a regular basis to monitor either the system and/or process audits to verify compliance and so drive the process of improvement for quality and reliability. And essentially, that would then lead to obviously possible development issues. But again, just remaining with the monitoring for a moment, we might also want to assess the complaint response times. That is also a huge issue in the automotive industry. We'd like suppliers to respond rapidly to any claims, rather yesterday than today. That's, I guess, the usual. We'd like to have a high service level as far as these complaints are concerned. And then obviously conducting the performance reviews. We're going to track suppliers, look at trends, levels of consistency, reliability, performance over time. Those are definitely issues, which will then, if need be, result in some kind of escalation procedure. So also escalation levels should be addressed if there is some kind of poor performance, which will then hopefully also enable some kind of a structured supplier development, right? If necessary, and this is obviously something we do not want, but is at some stage perhaps necessary, when is a supplier disqualified? When do we block the supplier? So again, these kind of escalation procedures should be specified, and we should be using these things during our monitoring and the evaluation of the suppliers. Essentially, it comes down to things will happen. There will be complaints, and as a customer, if my supplier deals with these things as rapidly as possible, and if he deals with them in a satisfactory way, then I feel that I'm being supported, and the supplier does everything in his ability to take care of my issues. Then I'm probably a happy customer, even though things might have happened, causing some kind of complaint process to take place and perhaps even some kind of escalation. Um, so those are issues that we need to consider. And then we come to the actual supplier development. Right? Supplier development, what is effective supplier development? We're looking at the ability to identify supplier weaknesses through our evaluation, whether it is the ongoing evaluation through his delivery performance, or whether it is through supplier audits, for example. We could be assessing the quality, logistics, delivery performance, pricing. These are usually issues that are being monitored. We want to implement some kind of improvement plan. Improvement plans, maybe these things consider the quality of the 8D reports, which I think are probably the most common. Issues such as root cause analysis, whether it's Ishikawa 5Y or any other method, although Ishikawa and 5Y are probably the most common ones and generally required. The quality of these root cause analysis, I think, are a huge issue in the automotive industry. Many companies do not take that as seriously. Probably they don't really understand the whole thing, because this topic can become quite complex. Unfortunately, is often viewed as let's complete the 8D report and get it over and done with, which is not going to necessarily be satisfactory. So again, we might be looking at the improvement plans to develop the supplier in terms of these issues. Also, perhaps considering PDCA, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, and where, for example, continuous improvement process takes hold, and how we introduce continuous improvement. All right. Again, I think that is a topic we could probably spend quite a bit of time on. Right. Maybe it would deteriorate to that extent where we need some kind of an on-site support by some resident. That might also be an issue. Supplier training, support, development programs. Again, I think we're all aware of the program for any suppliers that need to ultimately achieve the IATF 16949, especially if they're at ISO 9001 level. So again, depending on what kind of program we would like to implement, this is very often based on our internal view of things, what we expect the customer and in which areas he would need to improve, right? Right, and yeah, performance, cost improvement, supplier development obviously boosts the performance, would hopefully cut costs, strengthening supply chains. That is what we ultimately would like to achieve. Joint process optimization. We could be looking at lean projects and process optimization projects to drive efficiency, collaboration between supplier and customer. Hopefully, creating long-term partnerships. That's, I guess, the kind of stability that one would like in industry. Um, Suppliers as customers hope for long-term relationships with confidence, and obviously looking at the continuous improvement by means of the KPIs, knowing that we live in a world that is continuously evolving, where we always have to adapt. There is nothing set in stone. We will always need to adapt to the world, right? To what is happening around us. Therefore, regular KPI follow-ups, which then hopefully drive ongoing improvement and support. And that pretty much brings me to the end of this little presentation. I would, in that way, be open to any possible questions.
Thank you very much, Mirko, for the overview and insights on the topic of supply chain, supplier management. And yeah, if anybody wants to raise the questions through their microphone, they can do so. They can raise their hands or write it in the chat. That would be good. So we enabled you for unmuting your mic if you want. If you could raise your hand first if you want to say something, would be good. Or you can type it. You can type it in the chat if you want to bring up any question. Maybe to kick the questions off, something that came to my mind is, Mirko, you were talking about requiring certain certifications from a supplier. And you were talking about audits. So that means we're looking at certifications, what they have, but we're still carrying out on-site audits or assessments, right? So what would you say is the balance between requiring certifications, but still doing audits for each supplier, or do that based on some other criteria? So what do you would think about not relying on certificates, or what is the good baseline of doing audits when it's necessary or when not?
Yeah, I think one of the questions that is obviously raised very often, and I've actually heard the term audit tourism coined at several times, and people very often ask, well, why are so many audits actually taking place? I mean, this goes especially from the supplier point of view, who is subject to being audited by who knows what, right? Certification or organizations. He's got to do his internal audits. He's got to be audited by his customers and so on and so forth. And if it's all the customers, basically a company could be in permanent audit all year round, okay, which costs resources. So many suppliers ask the question, well, what is the good of having these certifications? And I think it's just really important to understand the difference between the types of audits that we have. System audits looking or focusing on your business and the way your business is structured, the systematic approach to the business, which is in essence the perspective of top management. Who wants to run the business, right? And that running of the business has to be compliant with whichever requirements are stipulated in the standards that are available for certification, such as ISO 9001, over the IATF 16949, looking at environment 14,001, 45,001, and so on and so forth. Those are all certifiable standards for management systems, which provide a hold for management to see what they need to ultimately manage regarding these so-called management systems. All right. As far as these audits are concerned, where the customer comes to a supplier, at that moment in time, as a customer, I am asking the question not whether you really have a fantastic system, right? The question now is, from my perspective as a customer, to find out whether you are actually able to satisfy my requirements should I give you a contract for what I would like to purchase from you. Right? So the fact that you have a system that might be compliant with who knows whatever requirements in the standards themselves, that's one thing, and it's another thing to be certain that you will satisfy my specific requirements for the product that I'm going to be purchasing. Right? And as I mentioned in this presentation, it really is a focus on the value-adding chain which is in place to ultimately manufacture my specific product in this case, right? So that would essentially hopefully clarify the need for customers to actually do audits and evaluate not your system as a supplier, but as your ability to satisfy my requirements regarding this specific product that I would like to purchase from you. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, so it's rather than looking at what the system can of the supplier, rather than are they able to fulfill my specific needs in terms of manufacturing technological capabilities, but also in terms of any other maybe a specific OEM or customer requirement from my side, what I need to push down to the supplier.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one point raised in the middle of your presentation where you talked about the sourcing, or generally looking at potential supplier evaluation, and there's a certain point where it comes to showing confidential data that somebody said, I think it was Rainer, that he said that at this point NDA would be most effective, just to start off with an NDA. And also I think in our experiences you should never share information with any auditor. He can sign an NDA and you can show him things, but never to share or to give him something.
And I think that makes for good audit practice, and to give the supplier some kind of confidence that you are not going to abuse any information that you see or whatever here if you go for an audit. And it does make sense to have an NDA signed in that respect.
And I think also a point that came up was talking about the requirements for IATF certification. That and I know, and I heard, I know that most people, most customer, tier 1 or tier N company think that their supply base needs to be IATF certified, and it is a requirement that everyone needs to have IATF.
No, it is not. It's not. Minimum requirement is ISO 9001 as far as the IATF 16949 is concerned, right? Minimum requirement, and then obviously they would like you to have some kind of a program where you can develop your supplier in the direction of IATF 16949 with the aim of becoming certified at some stage.
Yeah.
But it is not a requirement to have only suppliers with IATF 16949 certification.
And that every supplier needs to have the IATF.
Yeah. Exactly.
Alles schön und toll, aber ich habe keinen Strom, ich habe die Garage nicht aufmachen. Und man ist auch schon gekommen.
Karl hat alles platt gemacht.
Galli, wie lange geht's noch? Ich habe die Garage nicht aufmachen.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I was.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. So we have the topic again, 9001. Topic of IATF, and I heard Rainer said that suppliers must be eligible or must have 9001 to become IATF certified.
Yes.
And if they are eligible, so maybe
that's the other thing. Not every supplier is eligible to have the IATF 16949 certification. Um, Although I would imagine that if you're going to be delivering into the automotive environment, that would at some stage make you eligible for IATF 16949 certification.
We have also something that question is saying that the supplier evaluation, which IATF requirements say shall be the quality management system audit, but actually customer company auditors frequently audit or do audits only on the manufacturing process, not on the QMS. What do you think causes this?
Well, again, the question is, what kind of audit are you actually carrying out, and what is your intention of the audit, right? You could do a system audit, and the system audit effectively, as I said earlier on, is the perspective of top management who are whose prime goal it is to run the business, right? It is them who decide what processes they have, how the business is structured, and it must be structured in such a way as to consider all the requirements of the related standards that are applicable, such as the IATF 16949. You might also be considering ISO 14001 and the rest of the standards. So the question is, what is your intention? Is it your intention to determine whether the business actually complies with the standards that are applicable there, or are you intending to confirm that if you give the supplier a contract, that you will actually receive the product that you are ordering from this? At that, for example, at that stage, if I can very briefly mention this, a system audit will be looking at the business processes at the strategic level, the value-adding level, and the support level, processes at those three levels. But when I'm doing a process audit, that process audit is from my customer perspective based on a specific product that I would like to purchase from my supplier. And at that stage, it is not my priority to determine how he runs his business strategically, right? I would like to know whether he is capable of supplying me with the product that I want, right? So the criteria becomes a little bit different. So essentially, if he has a perfect system to measure and manage his measuring equipment, he might have the perfect system. But if his measurement instruments, for example, are not able to satisfy my requirements regarding some kind of measurement on the product that I'm ordering, his system could be as good as it likes to be, it's not going to satisfy my requirements, right? So he would have to add to his measuring equipment. He would then have to qualify that measuring equipment, ensure that it is calibrated, that he has his MSA on that equipment, because that specific new measuring equipment would have to satisfy my product requirements. The fact that he has a good system in place, but no equipment to satisfy my requirements, those are two different things. So he would fail my process audit, but he would probably pass the system audit. All right. So I think that's something that we need to bear in mind.
So, Mirko, there is an other question regarding
Yes.
the CQI 14
Yes.
for warranty management guideline. I would like to answer this question. I guess it was from, just a second, the warranty question, CQI 14. it is from Alexander. Alexander, I would like to answer your question. In practice, whether CQI 14 must be rolled down depends on basically on the customer requirements. But I will say CQI 14 is not limited to Tier 1. It is intended for the full automotive supply chain and may also be required for the Tier N suppliers. And if customer for OEMs cascade the requirement of, or if the parts affect warranty parts or warranty performance or safety special characteristics, then it's definitely not limited to Tier 1. It is applicable for the whole supply chain. But basically, it's a question of customer-specific requirements. And I think I have answered these questions correctly.
Yeah, I think so too. Basically, any company at any tier level could be subject to be held liable for some kind of damage, whatever, where there is some kind of a warranty agreement. So this is not even limiting things to the automotive industry. You might be a supplier to any other industry, and if there is a case where you might be held liable for whatever contractual issues that you are not complying with, there might be warranty issues that are applicable. And in any industry, that would be relevant to be able to manage that. In this case, CQI 14 provides a basis for managing warranty issues within the automotive industry. And as Andreas said, this is a subject to a customer requirement. So, for example, if you're delivering to Fiat Chrysler, it will be a part of the contractual agreement, and you will have to implement your warranty management based on CQI 14, right? Other OEMs might not require that, but it's always a good idea to have some kind of warranty management process, right? Irrespective of who the customer is.
It is a question of the product liability in the whole supply chain.
Exactly.
Of their products and services.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Hello, here's Alexander. Just maybe a small clarification of this topic. The question is not could be, but the question is must be. The idea, and we discussed internally in the company that with auditor from IATF, that this CQI 14 is now accepted. Sure, that's okay. And it was created by AIAG and then also roll out customer specific requirements through some OEMs, North America OEMs. And the question is now, do we must to roll out and get confirmation from all our suppliers? That means we are tier 1. Do we need and must to get confirmation from, in this case, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers?
I think, Mirko, you would like to answer.
Well, again, do they need confirmation of implementing CQI 14? I would, if it is your requirement and you are affected by those kind of issues, I think it would make sense to push them in the direction of developing a warranty management process based on CQI 14. That would make sense. I would like to perhaps just compare that to the requirement, for example, the American automotive industry that requires you to implement an APQP process, right, which is basically the project management. And then VDA comes along and says, well, we'd like to have our maturity level assurance implemented. Are you now, as a supplier, going to switch back and forth between one method and another? Probably not. You're going to have one method that will hopefully take care of the requirements as stipulated in both of them, right? So the correlation between the two systems is important. And in that way, it's probably the same for CQI 14, the warranty management. Any company should have a warranty management process. And it might then be a good idea to have a look at the requirements within CQI 14, whether they are considered within my warranty management process, so that I could then confirm without any doubt that I am applying CQI 14 for warranty management.
In the fact and from the content, we do it, of course, independent from CQI 14. The question was about just only this paper. Do we need some confirmation exactly to show them this paper to the auditor, for example?
Mirko, I would like to answer.
Go ahead.
Because the question from Alexander is not, it makes sense, or should we have it? In any cases, it's the best case. But the question is from the auditor, if I correctly understand Alexander, is we must have this in the supply chain. And based on my experience, and I am not a justice or lawyer, my experience is this is not a question of the tool or of the standard from the German or American association, from VDA or AIAG. This is a law. From my point of view, it's a law, globally a law. If you have a product and some parts of safety products, then you have to make sure you deliver secure, high-quality parts in the market. And therefore, I think it's a risk evaluation in your company to drill down in the supply chain. And you could use the tool CQI 14, yes, of course, but you can do it in a risk evaluation on your own way.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the answer what you would like to know or to hear.
Yeah, I think this is important what you say, Andreas, because what happens to if you do not have customers who require a warranty management process according to CQI 14? Then the auditor cannot force you to go with to use the tool provided in CQI 14. By all means, you can do that if you like, but it is then up to you how you're going to do that to have proof of an implemented warranty management process. All right. As soon as you have a customer who requires implementation of CQI or application of CQI 14, where it is a requirement to use the actual tool that is provided, well, then you will have to obviously, based on the contractual agreement, provide evidence of that use of the tool, right? Which then maybe becomes a tool that you can use for all your suppliers, because I don't think you're going to be changing the method from one to the other. Does that make sense, Alexander?
Yes, it makes sense. In my really clear case, the customer only just make a link to AIAG, and that's it. And they wanted that we are, from the content, agree with CQI 14. We do it everywhere,
yes,
independent of this request. And the question was just only, do we need to put the name CQI 14 just like the header for all our activities and management risks and so far, what already we discussed last 5 minutes?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if there's only a link, as far as I'm concerned, you can call it anything you like, unless there is a definite contractual agreement with the customer. Please make sure this is CQI 14. Then that's what you use. and then it should also indicate the CQI 14. Other than that, I don't think you can be forced to put anything there.
I think to better satisfaction of the customer, it would make sense to involve CQI 14 in the list of all the CQIs what we have already roll out, and just for the next cooperation with our suppliers, just also make a hint for that and explain what does mean.
The best way is you have also considered all the CQI requirements from your customer in your quality agreement contract with all your suppliers.
We do it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think you should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else, Andre?
We had one comment about the correction of the wording of service parts in terms of the eligibility for IATF certification for suppliers between calling it service parts instead of now replacement parts instead of service parts. And I corrected it in my in my text already.
Okay. All right. Great. So did we get through all the questions, or are there more?
I think we have one more, and if I can read it, what will be changed in the supply chain environment and supply chain world concerning the implementation of the Supply Chain Act, according to the obligations for the supplier to supplier, or the obligations for the supplier to position themselves. So I think this is about the Supply Chain, EU Supply Chain Act.
In Germany, the supply chain.
This is already applicable or valid in Germany, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, more question of Europe, to be honest.
Yeah.
Ja, das Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflicht, Sorgfaltspflichtgesetz.
Right.
Lieferketten. So, ja, Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtgesetz.
Lieferketten-Sorgfalts.
Genau.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a law, and you have to follow it. Or what is the question?
This is more about in Germany we take it for serious. It's by law. We're following it. Most of them, to be honest. What is about the implementation on the European level?
It's right now, I guess, under construction, under discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think this isn't quite ready for the implementation levels as they expected. That's my personal opinion on that. I think especially smaller companies will have a lot to deal with. I think, not only the small ones, but also the larger ones. They have quite a few things to deal with on that.
This was exactly the background of my question, so that I have a feeling that there's still a lot to do, and what my expectation is that more things have to be defined in the background than currently is in place.
Yes, and I think they shot very quickly from the hip when they produced it, and they realized it couldn't effectively be implemented in industry. I think there are just too many issues still not clarified. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Thank you.
For that, the CSDDD, it is called the Sustainability Due Diligence Directive from the EU. It is since, I guess, 2024 agreed in the Parliament, European Parliament, but the states have to roll out in their national law until the end or the mid of 2027. And this is right now a huge discussion if they postpone this date or not, but they have a little bit time until July or August
Mhm.
2027. This is, from my experience, the current status.
Okay. I make a bet that in 2030 we're still speaking about it.
Probably. Probably.
Yes,
Sure.
we will see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mirko, I think that's it. And
Always through with everything.
thank you very much for the presentation and the insights on that topic. And thank you everyone for listening, for contributing, for bringing you in and making others aware of changes in current status. And yeah, thanks overall for everyone's participation. And thank you, Mirko, very much. And yeah, we will share the presentation afterwards to anybody who has not only participated but was registered and didn't have a chance to participate. So you will receive the presentation as a PDF afterwards. And yeah, thank you very much. And if I may remind that at 3 p.m. we have Tanya Bolden from AIAG talking about the interesting topic of the overall topic of sustainability, AIG's perspective on it, American perspective on sustainability and requirements. So that might be interesting. And Mirko, thank you very much again. And
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
goodbye
Thank
to
you.
everyone. And maybe we see us at 3 p.m.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, war gut, ne?
Moment.
Hat das gepasst?
Ja, ja.
Moment.
Ja, ich weiß, André, aber
Achtung.